When my husband Bob gives his presentation on what makes a successful entrepreneur, he always leads with the 3 Ds: desire, dedication, and dependability. Anyone that wants to be in business for themselves probably has plenty of desire. Dedication, as Bob defines it, is a steadfast, adherent commitment to bringing that business idea to life. But perhaps the hardest D is dependability. It's about living up to your word every day and always being there, especially when the going gets tough. We could all learn a thing or two about the 3 Ds from Miguel Angel Cruz. I'm Michelle Fish. My husband, Bob, is the co-CEO of one of the largest coffee shop chains in the United States. And together, we are the founders of One Big Island in Space. We're on a mission to change the way coffee is bought and sold around the world. We've been traveling the globe looking for millions of pounds of coffee from producers that are doing the right thing for their people, for the planet, and for their communities. When we find them, we connect them to a marketplace of buyers that will pay them the right price for their coffee, now and for years to come. It's a model that is beyond fair trade and beyond USDA organic. We call it Farm Direct. Our visits don't always work out, but we won't stop going until we can put a name, a face, and a place on every cup of coffee we serve. Miguel Angel Cruz is one of the small producers whose coffee we buy through our partnership with Pascual Castillo and Maria Esther Sot from Finca La Fortaleza. For generations, his family has been farming their land on a steep, fertile mountainside that is remote and hard to get to, even by Chiapas standards. It's the Cruz family legacy. When Miguel and his brother came of age, their father gave his brother a hectare of the family's precious land for coffee farming. But Miguel, though he was equally loved, only received half a hectare, and it was decided that he, alone among his siblings, would pursue a higher education. But then the price of coffee on international markets fell to historic lows. There just wasn't enough money for Miguel to continue. He had no choice but to come home and work his half hectare of coffee. But it wasn't enough to sustain him. So, Miguel sought work in the United States. He applied for a worker visa, and in 2004 he got one. He worked a variety of jobs in agriculture, but his heart was back in Chiapas with Rosa, his girlfriend since middle school. By 2009, coffee prices had risen from record lows, and he had managed to save some money. It seemed that the moment had finally come to head home and build a life with Rosa on the farm. Miguel returned to Chiapas, and, as luck would have it, one of the first people he met was Pascual Castillo. Pascual had a reputation for being exceedingly fair and was full of good advice about how to improve yields and quality. They became fast friends. With time and a lot of desire, dedication, and dependability, Miguel was eventually able to buy more land, and by 2014, he had grown his farm from half a hectare to 3. The future was bright. And then came Roya, also known as rust. First, the leaves on his plants turned an orange color and fell to the ground. Then the fruit withered. Then the plants died. He lost everything he had worked for over the course of just 40 days. In the end, he and every coffee farmer in his community were left with nothing. But then Pascual Castillo, a man who knows a thing or two about the 3 Ds himself, showed up on his doorstep with an offer. He promised work, new rust-resistant seedlings, and training. In return, Miguel would help transform Pascual's cattle ranch into a coffee farm as a laboratory to show the small producers in Chiapas that coffee could thrive again. Miguel talked it over with Rosa. His friends were skeptical that Pascual's vision could work. But he decided to take the leap, and he threw himself into the task. For 3 years, every Monday through Saturday, a truck would show up in the village at 4 a.m. Miguel and several of his neighbors would make the 2-hour trip down the mountain to do the seemingly impossible manual labor of transforming the trampled, deforested cattle land of Finca La Fortaleza into the vibrant coffee farm it is today. They helped build a nursery for the rust-resistant seedlings and learned how to care for and propagate new plants. Pascual provided Miguel with 25,000 rust-resistant seedlings to start a community nursery in Mahasil. With the help of one of his friends, they turned those 25,000 plants into 50,000 and began to distribute them along with training on the new agronomy. After working all day with Pascual, Miguel would head home to work in his own fields. Gradually, as more of his neighbors began to see the new coffee thriving in his fields, they asked Miguel for help in reestablishing their own coffee production. So, in addition to the work he was doing for Pascual and on his own farm, he stepped up to the responsibility of helping his neighbors. All told, Miguel's nursery provided seedlings to almost 500 families. These days, once again, people can make a living in coffee.
Voy a echarle muchas ganas a la parte que me corresponde, cultivar la tierra. Es lo que sé hacer y me gusta hacerlo.
So he's very thankful for Pascual's family, for his wife, him, and yourself, that giving him this opportunity to join this mission, and that he's going to do his part and making sure that you receive a quality coffee from his side. That's the passion that they have.
Gracias.
Since last year, Bigby Coffee has been buying Miguel's coffee through our Farm Direct partnership with Finca La Fortaleza. For the first time in his coffee farming career, Miguel knows that he will sell his coffee this year and in the years to come at a fair price that is based on the economics of his farm, not on the vagaries of the international market. Desire, dedication, and dependability. Today, Miguel is hard at work on one of his biggest desires, a house for his family. He's ready to break ground for the foundation this year. One thing we know, if Miguel says he's going to get it done, you can depend on him to see it through.